Welcome to the Francisca Show podcast on JewishCoffeehouse.com, the show where I give a voice to Jewish issues, topics, and people. I'm Francisca, your host. A few things before we get started. So I'd like to just remind you, if you haven't listened to the episode with CP Handler, go into the show notes. I am linking the episode there. So listen to that first, perhaps, or go back and listen to it after this episode. I do have to warn you that in this next series, today's episode and the following episodes, you will hear about violence and some explicit language. So trigger warning. Next, if you do enjoy this podcast, please share this podcast with your friends and community. This is how you help grow this show. If you are new here, welcome. And I'd like you to know that we have a WhatsApp group where you could join and participate in the conversation. And of course, I love hearing from you. Thank you so much for all your feedback. I am a podcast success launch coach, and this podcast is a part of Jewish Coffee House Network. So check out the other podcasts on the network by going to jewishcoffeehouse.com. You have requested more, so here we go. Welcome back to the Francisca Show. Today we have a follow-up episode on our episode with CP Handler from a few months back. Today we will be interviewing one of her clients / kids, as CP has referred to them. And today's guest is Randy. We are so excited to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Just a disclaimer, today is not a Jewish episode or focused on Jewish. We are going off tangent. So I know I got messages. Oh, are they Jewish? Let's just put this out for a little bit. We are going deep and raw into the story of Randy today, and we're so excited to have you on. So let's start off by you telling us a little bit about your childhood, your background, and we'll move through your life story along.
All right. I'm Randy. I'm from Ohio, born and raised out here. 27. I guess I've kind of had a rough life, from childhood all the way grown up to what led me to go to DYS for juvenile life, and basically led me where I'm at today, living my dreams now.
DYS is juvenile prison, where you met CP for the first time, correct?
Yes.
How does a young boy end up in Juvie?
Well, you can end up there in a million different ways, but me, I just kind of had like a rough childhood, as people call it. I didn't really think it was that rough when I was a kid, but as I look back, it's like, wow, I'm gonna survive. Like, I survived through all that, and I'm still here today. But I guess it kind of like all started when I was like young. One of my first earliest memories that I could think of, which is a bad memory, it was finding my stepfather dead, and he had killed himself. He slit his wrist in the shower. That was kind of like the first memory I have. That's like the youngest I remember. That's when I lived with my mom.
So how old were you?
I was 5 when that happened, 4 or 5.
Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I had a brother actually. He was there. He was older than me, and I was the one who actually found him. My brother wouldn't go into the bathroom because, like, I remember the bathtub overfilling with water and it getting all, like, we lived in a trailer, so I remember seeing all the blood in the hallway to like the trailer, and like I was only like 4 years old. I didn't know what it was. I didn't think it was blood or nothing. So me and my brother just played outside until my mom got home, and she like went inside and like seen all the blood like on the floors, and like I just remember her like, because I remember I locked the door too. Like I opened the door and like I seen the bathtub overfilling, and like I just locked the door and closed it. And me and my brother went outside and played till my mom got home. Like, I remember when she got home, she went and, like, busted the door open. And I remember her running in there. And, like, I just remember the image of, like, her picking him up out of the bathtub. Yeah, it was crazy.
So what happens after that? Do you stay with your mom?
No, I didn't actually. And, like, I don't know if that was kind of a part of why she kind of gave me to my dad. But I always think in, like, the back of my mind, like, that kind of played part in it. It was probably like a year after that. I never met my dad at this time or nothing either. I met my dad right, like the day that I went to go live with him was the day I met him. And I didn't even know I was going to go live with him either. My mom told me I was going there for like the weekend, like a 2-day thing just to meet him and stuff. And then like when Monday came around, they were like, oh, go take a shower, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I don't have any more clothes. They're like, yeah, you do. Your mom dropped them all off earlier. So I went and looked in the back, and there was like garbage bags full of all my clothes. And like, then I didn't see her again for like, it's probably like 4 or 5 years. And like, I loved her. Like, I'd cry myself to sleep because I didn't like, I'd want to hug and a kiss from my mom, you know? And not seeing her for so long just made me like, not like her. I don't know, really, I guess. But she tried to come see me when I was like 9, when I lived with my brothers and stuff. And like, I didn't really talk to her or nothing. After I moved in with my father and his girlfriend and their daughter, and it was my grandfather's house. I didn't really know them that well or nothing. Like, I don't even think I called him dad when I first met him, because like, it was just weird, you know? Like, I'm like, I call you dad, I don't even know you. But then like, eventually, you know, we grew into each other from there.
Like, it's unimaginable. You never had that closure with your mother. She just dropped you off. She didn't tell you. You know, there's this Daniel Tiger song, grown-ups always come back. It's something we tell our kids, you know, don't worry, we drop you off at school, or you go to a play date or a birthday party or to the grandparents. Grown-ups, we always come back, and it's a given, and it's something that at such a young age was just taken away without any closure or explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And just taking a moment to recognize that. So what was school life like for you, your social life, getting into your adolescent years?
School was, it was always kind of a problem for me, you know? Like, 3rd grade, I got in trouble for making a bomb threat. Like, I was a kid, I used to take apart, like, everything. I don't know if you ever heard of MacGyver. There was this show, he used to take apart things and build cool things. And, like, people used to call me that when I was a kid, because I'd take apart my remote control cars and, like, make them faster and, like, do cool things with them. And then, like, one day, me and my teacher got into it, and I had, like, some parts from my RC cars in my book bag. And, like, I just made a stupid comment, like, I'm gonna blow this place up. Well, I said this bee, you know, like this bitch. And yeah, I got suspended for 3 days, my first time ever getting in trouble, really. They were like, if you, like, this won't go on your permanent record or nothing, as long as you stay out of trouble until 6th grade. I was like, yeah, okay. So I stayed good, really. But I mean, I still got in trouble in school here and there, just little things. And middle school was kind of when I started getting in really big trouble. I got caught with weed. I got expelled from school.
Do you have friends?
Oh yeah, I was kind of popular, you know. I mean, I had, well, what I thought were friends, I guess, but they really weren't, you know.
How so?
A lot of my friends that I grew up with, they snitched on me, and that's kind of how I went to jail, because I didn't get really caught like with really anything except like some burglaries, but they all wrote statements and stuff, and those were people I went to high school with, you know.
Were they involved with you, and then when they got caught, they threw you under the bus?
Yeah, yeah.
How did that start out? How did you get into robbing people, and why did you start it?
It started when I was probably like 14, 15. You know, I started like just basically experimenting with like weed and stuff, and then like my home life wasn't the greatest because basically wasn't being loved the way that I wanted to be, you know, when I was a kid. Well, the way I should have been, you know, like I should have had more love than I did when I was a kid or when I was that age. So like it was kind of like just everything just amounting up to, like, people always told me that I wouldn't be nothing, or like I'd end up in jail, or, you know. And so basically I just thought that's what I had to be. Like that's just, I thought that's what my life was gonna be. It kind of started like when I was, yeah, about 13 or 14 is when I started getting into like really big trouble. My first charge, I stole a dirt bike, just out walking around one night. I seen a dirt bike and I took it. Had no reason to take it or nothing. I actually got caught on it, and that was kind of like the start of my criminal record, my adjudicated criminal record.
When you got caught, did you feel bad? What were your feelings?
No, not at the time, really. I didn't know how to feel like that when at that age. Like, I didn't know how to have empathy for others at that age. And I acknowledge that now. Like at that time, like I didn't care. In my mind at that age, I was like, if nobody else cares, why should I care? So it's kind of like I don't know what to call it. I guess like all or nothing, you know? But yeah, I really didn't feel bad for it. Like I felt bad that I got caught. Shit. So after they got the dirt bike and stuff, they put me on probation. They gave me receiving stolen property of a motored vehicle. And then well, there was a lot going on at home too at this time.
Like what?
So I gotta backtrack. Sorry, it's just I'm scattered. When I was 8, I was adopted by my grandfather. And it was all like just kind of like a money scheme, kind of like adopted kids. They get a check every month. So my dad and my grandpa came up with this plan, like you adopt him and we'll get a check for him every month, you know? So I basically just became like a money child. Whoever I live with gets a check for $1,000, $1,200, whatever it was. Like I really don't know how much. It was something like that. But like my grandpa always did take good care of me. I can vouch for that. He wasn't there that much, you know?
How did he take good care of you and not be there that much?
Well, because he supplied, like he got all the food. He always made sure I had food. And like I remember one year, like he bought me like anything I wanted for Christmas, he would get me it. Like one year I wanted a PS2. He like came and picked me up from my aunt's house and took me to go buy a brand new thing, you know?
So he took care of your physical needs.
Yeah, yeah.
What was your relationship like with him?
We were really close because he was like kind of the only person I've had. Like me and him got like really close, and he wasn't as bad as my dad. My dad was kind of abusive too. Like he'd slap me around and stuff. And my grandpa, he wasn't like that. He was just like old time, like old school. Like he'll whip your ass, you know. He wouldn't hit you, but he would like bend you over his knee and whip you with like a belt, you know. My dad, he would like hit you in the head and stuff like that. So yeah, I got adopted when I was 8, and then I became like a money child. And then like when I was about 11 or 12, this is when the family broke up, and this is kind of when everything kind of just turned. So like my dad and my brother got in this big old fight about a cell phone bill or something. I don't know. And like it was bad. My brother like ripped my dad's teeth out, and like this is right in front of me. Like me and my stepsister watched it all happen. My stepsister was getting ready to stab my brother in like the back because he was beating the crap out of my dad. And I remember like holding her back, like, nah, dad deserved this one because he smacked him with like an ashtray or something. It was like a wild fight. The police came, like my dad ended up going to jail. My brother went to the hospital because he needed stitches, but that's what like broke up the family. And then like my grandfather like made it to where like I couldn't see my dad no more. And Jason, he was young. This is my brother. He was turned into my guardian now, you know, since my grandpa's always on the road. Dad's not in the house no more. It's only me and Jason there now. Like everybody's gone except us two. I was getting into trouble and stuff. Just not being able to see my dad. I was getting mad and stuff. So like I would go out and kind of rebel. Just sneaking out, getting in trouble by the police. And then finally my grandpa moved me to my aunt's house when I was about 12. And I stayed out there for about a year. She kicked me out because my grandfather gave one of her dogs away. So she had kicked me out, and then I moved back at like 14, 15, back in with Jason. So it's me, Jason, and my grandpa back in the house. Jason didn't really care what I did. You know, he's young. He's 20. He was younger than I am now. Like with a little brother, like I wouldn't have cared what you were doing either, you know? So like I had a lot of freedom, and that's kind of like what kind of was bad too, me having all that freedom to get in trouble.
Back to the trouble you were getting into, what eventually got you to Juvie?
Yeah, I got the RSVP of the dirt bike, the receiving stolen property. For that, I was on probation. And my first time ever getting locked up, I think it was like 3 days, maybe a week. They locked me up for violating probation, like I skipped school or something. So then I went in, and then I got out, and I was out for like a couple weeks. Did something else, I forget. Probably I failed a drug test maybe or something, or like I skipped like a thing. I don't really remember. But then they locked me up for 2 weeks. And they're like, your third time's not going to be, 2 weeks. So the third time, they locked me up for 90 days. I remember on my 90th day, I either had to get released that day or go to court. And I was like, oh, I'm getting out. Nope. They came and picked me up and took me to a group home for 6 months. And then I got out of there and I was doing really good then. Like I was on top of my stuff. Like I was getting good grades at school. They have this thing at our school. It's like a pioneer of the month, like the most improved kid. And like I got that. I had good grades. And then like one day I didn't come home straight after school. And my grandfather, he got mad about it. And like at this time he's older. Like he can't really drive truck that much now because he had gangrene on his feet. So like he doesn't drive truck anymore. He sits at home. And he's the one really watching me. But I didn't come home. Later on that day when I did come home, we got in a big fight, and I remember he broke a cane over my head, like a wooden like walking cane. So I remember I took the other half of the cane and I ran to my aunt's house, and I was like, I'm not going back. Like I'm not going to school or nothing, because like I thought I was on probation, but I wasn't on probation anymore. They didn't tell me I wasn't on probation. So that's kind of why like I ran away and I didn't come back, because like, oh yeah, if I go back, I'm definitely going back to jail. Because I'm not going to school. So I was already off probation, and I didn't know this until I actually caught my new charges. And so after I ran away and stuff, like I'm thinking I'm going to go back to jail, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to go back. Like, forget that, you know? So I was kind of on the run. Well, I thought I was still on the run, which I really wasn't. So it's kind of like the all or nothing thinking again. It was like, okay, I'm already going back to jail. Like, it doesn't even matter what I do now. And really, I didn't really have to do anything. I could have just went home, and like my grandpa would have took me back in, you know, he probably would have. But, you know, you got to eat when you don't have any money, and you got to figure out ways to get money. And like, I'm only 15. I can't really get a job. I could have probably like fast food, but nobody wants to do that, you know. I just remember the first robbery that I ever did. We got like $3,000. Well, I got $3,000. And from there, it was just like easy money, you know? I was just like, wow, that was so easy. Like I put forth some minimal effort.
Can you describe what it means to rob someone? Do you surveil them beforehand, or was it spontaneous?
It was weird. Like it was a lot different times. Like back then, like people weren't like all gun ho happy, and like it wasn't as it is. It's like thinking about it now, like, I don't even know how I used to do that. And like when I used to rob people, we like knock on their door and see if they were home. And if they were, we would offer to like cut their grass or something, you know? So like we're going to make money like regardless, kind of.
And some people said, yeah, please cut our grass.
Yeah,
and give me money.
like we've had people do that, and like we would come back and cut their grass, you know? Or we wouldn't, you know, if it was too far away, depending on where we're at. And then like, yeah, like it's I don't know how I used to do that. Like we would knock on the door, and if nobody was there, like we would find a way to get into the house and like take what we could, you know?
Did you fight over who gets to keep what?
Well, no, like, because at the first one I did, it was like 6 or 7 people, and I just came just to be there. And then like I ended up going in the house too, and I ended up finding $3,000. And I feel so bad. Damn, I'm such an asshole. But yeah, like after that first time, it was just like, okay, that's how I can get money and eat. And you know, I'm partying a lot too, because like I'm not going to school, I'm not doing nothing with my life, not doing anything productive. Yeah, I got just robbing houses, and I got caught with a couple guns. I have 4 felony 30s and 2 felony 2s and like 11 misdemeanors. I only did that just because I needed money and like food and places to sleep, you know? Like people aren't going to let you eat and stay at their place for free. You got to put forth something, you got to bring something to the table, you know?
When you get to Juvie, what are your feelings about the world?
Oh man, I knew, cause like as a juvenile, like being in a detention center, you hear all this stuff about juvenile prison, you know, and then like you hear all this stuff outside of it as a kid, like, oh, you better not go to juvenile prison, like, oh, Big Bubba will get you, blah, blah, blah. Like you hear all these things, and like when you're pulling up to those gates, cause the detention home is completely different than juvenile prison. Like, juvenile prison is literally, there's a gate wrapped around the whole thing. Our detention home didn't have that. It was just a building, and you had like a little gate outside. Like, pulling up to those gates, I'm the only person coming in, and like, it was the day after Thanksgiving. And I'll never forget that, because I was the only person that was on intake unit, and this is like the Supermax 23-1 in Circleville. They actually closed that institution down now. But yeah, I was the only one there. It was so weird, but like, pulling into that place, I was just like, when they called the Sally Port, that's what they call it, like the gates going into there, like I'm pulling up and I'm just like, oh my gosh, here it goes. Like, I'm gonna punch the biggest dude I see. Like, that was what I've always been told, you know? As soon as you get in there, punch the biggest dude. It doesn't even matter if you lose, you know? I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect, because it's literally a whole different world. Like, nothing out here pertains to anything in there. Nothing in there pertains to anything out here. It's completely different. The rules are different. The laws are different. Like, I watched a kid get stabbed in the head with a pencil once.
Did he survive?
Oh, yeah. I've seen a kid get hit with a lock and a sock while he was sleeping. I didn't see it, but I was on the same unit. And, like, we all woke up to this dude getting hit with a lock and a sock. Like a lock for your school locker that was in a sock, and somebody was beating him with it. I guess it's definitely crazy. And you see, like, the people that come in there, you could tell which ones aren't going to make it.
What do you mean by not going to make it?
They're just going to get extorted. They're going to get their food taken. They're going to get taxed is like, okay, you order commissary and somebody comes and takes it all from you. Kind of like the government with your paycheck. They take it. Like, here, you did all that, but we're going to need it from you, you know?
Now you know all about that, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm a taxpayer. Yeah, and you could take it one of two ways, you know? You can either take it to either look at the opportunity as what it is, like, okay, you could either learn to get better or learn to be a better criminal from there. And that's when I first went in. I was wild. So in the juvenile thing, there's minimum, medium, and close. Minimum is like minimum security, medium is medium security, and close is maximum security. So when you go in, you take a test and they classify you on your class. And I classified one away from like the maximum security, or 2 points or something like that. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to like Scioto. Like, I'm going to stay here at 23-1, you know? Nope, I got lucky, and they put me in the minimum institution as, I was a medium, but they put me in the minimum institution of B dorm. And like, when I first got there, I was on intake unit, and some of my friends came from Lorraine. And I remember it was probably not even my 15th day there. We had a big riot. Just a big old fight on Giaga dorm. It was like, it was supposed to be the whole unit, but everybody else got scared, and there was only like 6 or 8 of us that ended up getting into the riot. And, like, when I first got there, my first year, I was just rebelling against everybody. Like, F you, F this, I don't want to be here, you know? And, like, I realized it was mainly my cousin's death in 2014. It was June, my cousin Tex's death, that kind of, like, really opened my eyes a little bit and made me realize, like, it, like, opened my mind, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of, like, the more I hate this place, the longer my time is going to be, you know? And like, cause I wake up a lot hating it, and it just went by so slow. So like, I acted like I loved it, and I eventually, I'm not going to say I loved it, but I made myself love it. You know what I mean? Like, I'd wake up with a smile on my face, you know, go to sleep with a smile on my face. Nobody could touch me, you know? I heard this one thing before. It said, if you act good, eventually you'll be good, you know? You can act good for years, eventually you're going to become it. And that's kind of like what I did, you know? I was just acting good, like, because all the stuff, like being bad and rebelling against everybody, I mean, it did get you somewhere in there, because they did show a lot more love to the bad kids than the good kids, but it didn't get you anywhere, really, like, mentally. It made it more stressful for you, like me, than anybody else.
Talk to me about your first meeting with CP.
Oh, our first meeting?
Your first introduction, and like, what did you think of her?
I didn't like her at all. Didn't like her at all. I remember I got assigned to her caseload. I didn't talk to her for like the first 2, 3, maybe it was a couple months, you know? I think I even, like, told her off one time, maybe. I don't really remember, but I know we did have a rocky start. But eventually we started talking, and then, like, we ended up becoming, like, good, like, I don't know what to call it. I don't know, I guess friends, you know? I would say, you know, like, we came really close, and, like, I was able to talk to her, and, like, I could tell that she actually cared. Besides, like, everybody in the building, you know, there's all negative in that whole building. It's all negative. There's nothing good coming out of a juvenile prison, you know? But, like, I could just, I don't know, like, her vibe, and just, you could tell that she really cared about these kids in this building. And when nobody else did, like, not even her own parents cared, you know? And I'm an example. Like, I could vouch for that. Like, she cared for me even when I didn't care about myself.
Was that a big factor? It was like, how can she possibly care, so you couldn't trust it?
Yeah, yeah. It was just like, how can I trust her when I can't even trust my family? I can't even trust my own mom, you know? Like, how can I trust her? And, like, I got past that. It took a while, but I did get past that. And I'm like, here we are today, 10 years later.
It is 10 years.
10
Yeah.
years later.
We're right around Thanksgiving. Tell me about a pivotal moment in your work with CP, if you're comfortable sharing.
She basically, like, described to me, like a life different than the life I was living. Because what I was doing it felt like that's all I ever known was, like, to rebel and stuff. And, like, she opened my mind and, like, mentored me to, like, I don't really know. It's basically watching her too, and, like, how she handled herself.
How did she handle herself?
Like, just always so nice and caring no matter what. Like, nobody could bring her down no matter what happened to her. Her tires got slashed, and she still came in the next day laughing and smiling about it. And I had another person in there too, Dr. Williams. Like, she was a good person too. Like, her smile would brighten up a whole room. And it was just like, how do I get to be like that? I'm not going to get it going down this road. Like, I have to try something different, you know? But a pivotal moment would be like, I can't really think of one. I know there's a bunch, but, like, I just can't think right now.
Tell me about the relationships you've made in prison. Were any of them real?
Oh, yeah, some of the the relationships in there you'll never match. Like, I mean, not with the staff or not, but, like, the brotherhood and the relationship that I had with a lot of those kids in there, like, I've never had that again with nobody else. And that sucks, you know? But I'm thankful I did have those, because those helped me out a lot too. Like, those kids in there, like, they don't have nobody. You're with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they become like your brothers, like, literally like your brothers. It's like living with your family, you know? Like, we read each other's letters. We show each other pictures and stuff like that. But, like, those relationships, you won't match nothing like that, just because, like, the kids in there, like, it's all of you know what I mean? Like, the youth have to stick together, like, they have that certain kind of bond, you know? And then, like, the staff, they stick together.
Were you ever abused or mistreated by anyone, but staff particularly?
I wasn't no, I was well known. Like, everybody knew me there because I had the longest time there, you know? One of the longest times there, except when Emilio came. Emilio came and blew me out of the water. But, no, like, I mean, I did, like, a lot of staff didn't like me because I kind of had more power. I'm not going to say power, but I had more leeway than they did, because, like, I would cook food for the superintendent meetings. Like, I worked down in the front office. I was, like, at the beginning of
privileges.
Yeah, I had a lot of privileges. Like, privileges nobody in that institution will ever see again. Like, I threw the first pitch at an Indians game in this prison. It was crazy. Like, and they don't ever do this again. Like, they actually made me a photo album when I left. It was weird, the craziest thing.
Talk to me about what it was like leaving and restarting your life.
Scary. I was scared. I was definitely nervous, because my parents, my father and my grandfather, they came up frequently and came and see me in there. And they were making bets on me. They were like, you won't make it 6 months. You won't make it 6 months, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right. And that's kind of like, I held that up too. But a main thing that helped me getting out of jail was not going back to the same environment that put me in jail. So I moved in with my brother, Jason. Thank God that he let me move back in with him, because if I had to move back in with my grandpa, I'd probably be back in jail right now, honestly.
And CP helped you make those choices?
She actually helped me make those decisions, because I was even telling her, like, I don't know where I'm going to go when I get out, you know? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to stay at. Like, I love my grandfather, but I don't want to stay in that environment, you know? And she was like, what about your brother? And I was like, nah, he wouldn't let me do it, you know? Like, he wouldn't. We went back and forth about it a couple times, and you're like, just ask him, you know? And then, like, I ended up asking him, and he's like, yeah, like, he actually thought about it. And he's like, yeah, dude, like, I'm cool with that, you know what I mean? Because after I asked him, like, we didn't really have a relationship. He didn't come and see me that much in jail. But, like, once we started talking and stuff, and, like, he started coming up and seeing me, is when I asked him. And he was just like, yeah, dude, like, I don't have a problem with that.
So you got a job?
Yeah. I worked in jail. I did drywall in there, and for $1.75 an hour, that sucked. I put in so much drywall in that place. Now, like, being out and looking back, all that labor they got off of me, that was like $100,000 job I did there. And they paid me about $400. Yeah, like, getting out, I was really nervous. I was scared, even just because I know all my friends are going to hit me up to want to hang out. I've been away for 3.5 years. Like, everybody's hitting me up. So when I first got out, I didn't do nothing for about 2 months. I didn't do nothing. I sat in the house and my brother's like, dude, you got to get out the house, go do something. And the first place I went, I walked to the library, and I just checked out some books, went back home. I had a flip phone. I remember I got out and I bought a flip phone, because I didn't even know how to use, like, a smartphone. Like, I didn't know how to sign into Facebook. I didn't even know how to work, like, anything. I'm just like, man, technology was so crazy and so different from when I went in. It blew my mind. Yeah, then I finally landed a job at Taco Bell, and that was fun. Not really.
Was it hard getting, or the process of getting a job with a record?
No, because I was juvenile, so it was adjudicated. So places that do background checks can't see juvenile records. So that was cool too. Even I had an SYO attached to my thing. So an SYO is a serious youth offender. That's like a repeat offender. That's like, okay, this is your life. Like, you get in a fight in jail, you could go to adult. You know what I mean? You can go to adult prison. And I was testing the limits with that too. I got in a bunch of fights, and I did a bunch of things to where they could have bonded me over, but they didn't, thankfully. Yeah, I got out, but they set me up too, like Terry Florence. Mad respect for him. Miss that dude too. He helped me out, man. He took me off campus to go get, like, my driver's license. I remember he took me off shop to go to Kohl's to go get a whole suit. Like, I spent like $400 of my commissary money, because he could pull the money off my books and spend it on things. So, like, when he found out I had a court date, because my time was mandatory. I had 4 years to my 21st birthday, whichever came first. And of course, my 21st birthday came before that, I'm pretty sure. And then, like, with that, you really can't get like an early, I guess, because it's like, or you think you can, but it's something weird. It's like a 21 staff, I think, or something. I forget. It's something weird.
Tell me about Terry Florence.
When he found out, like, when the whole institution, I found out I got a court date, he was just like, we got to get you off campus. He's like, I'm making sure you're getting out, because I'm just dead weight. Like, I exercised everything I could in there. Like, I did cooking classes, I did drywall, I did everything I could. And so Terry, like, he was a really cool guy. I'd sit there and talk to him for hours too. But yeah, he took me off campus, bought me a suit, shoes. And I, like, remember we're getting ready to leave, and he's like, oh, we got to get you a watch. We got to go get you a watch. We went and bought a watch. And then, like, when I went to court, I had like 5 people come with me. Flo was there. I remember he stood up and spoke. And like, if it wasn't for those people coming to court with me, I'd have never got out that day. The judge even said, she's like, I called you in here today to basically tell you to stop writing for your early. But she's like, you brought 5 people with you that are vouching for you. They're like, you're just dead weight. Anything else, like, him sitting in here is hurting him more than it's going to help him out. And she was like, I can't release you today because you have to serve at least 1 day of your last year And I don't even know how she did that because it was concurrent. I don't know how she did it, but she did it. She sentenced me back to the detention home for that one day. And then Friday, I got released from the detention home of doing like 3 years.
Did you do anything special to make all these people show up for you and vouch for you?
They call it special, but I guess it would be special. I just call it giving thanks to them, you know? Like, I owe it to those people, you know? Because I just did what I had to do, you know? I was a good kid. I changed. I guess they call it rehabilitated. And it was them that really helped me. And, like, I didn't want to let them down, too, because that's kind of what kept me out so long, too, is, like, when I get in those ruts of, like, thinking, like, oh, F this, F that, I just think of, like, the people I would hurt. Even if, like, they're different today, you know, it still doesn't change my outlook on who that person was at that time. And, like, I feel like I'd still let you down if I messed up, you know?
Before we move on to your life now, and I definitely want to go a little bit into that, is there something you can share? Because I know on our next episode with Emilio, who comes from the gang life, and you did not come from that. What was that like being not in the gangs and having to live or have relationships with people who are? Was it intimidating? Did you feel insufficient?
First went to DYS. I remember I first got to Cleveland, and Ernest, he came and sat on my rack. And this CP, nobody knows who this kid is. I shouldn't say names, but they call him E. And he was, what do they call it? The GF, the godfather of the gang at the time. Like, that's like the top guy that calls all the shots and stuff. He came and sat on my rack. And I'm only here for like an hour or two. Like, it's nighttime. Everybody's getting ready for bed. I just got here. And he was like, hey, I know what you're in here for. He's like, you want to get down, O down, or something else. It was like some kind of slang that they use. And that's like, are you going to join the gang? Are you going to pay the gang? Or are you going to be a victim of the gang? And I was like, I'm not going to be none of those. I'm fucking solid. I was like, you can do what you got to do, you know what I mean? But just know I'm not giving up nothing. I'm not doing none of that. And nothing ever happened, you know what I mean? I felt like he really respected it because after the riot, because like the riot was a couple days after that. After that, they really never like tried to press me or nothing because they just kind of knew who I was. And like, I wasn't gonna go down for none of that stuff. And like a lot of them became real good friends with, you know? I'd bring them down to the superintendent's office and it could be feeding them steaks and tacos down there with us, like the gang members.
Tell us about your life today. What does it look like?
Oh, my life is everything I've ever dreamed of. It's literally, I mean, minus the money part. Okay, I could always use a little bit more money, you know? But other than that, my life is amazing. I got a beautiful baby boy. His name's Lincoln. He's 1.5. I had a beautiful girlfriend. She's amazing. A beautiful house out here in a rural area, you know? And it's like, this is literally what I used to dream about in DYS. Like, this is what I want to be. I wanted to be that neighbor that, like, when they came over to my house for a cookout or something, and, like, I told them, like, yeah, I was in prison for 4 years. They'd be like, what the hell? Well, for what, you know? And, like, that's what I am today, you know? Some people I tell them, like, what? Like, you did 4 years? Like, you do not seem like that type.
Do you feel like you have completely healed from your childhood trauma?
I don't think that anybody will ever be completely healed from all the trauma they have. It never goes away. It just gets easier to cover up and hide.
Do you feel like you're a fully functioning adult and part of society? Or is there anything you struggle with that you still carry from your past?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I do. I struggle a lot, you know, especially not having any parents because I just lost my father recently. So, and then I don't talk to my mom anymore. So, like, I don't really have, like, the family. And then, like, me having a kid, I didn't have any childhood pictures to even compare, like, pictures of me when I was a baby to my kid, you know? Like, the youngest picture I have of me, I think I'm 5, maybe 6. And it's, like, a blurry, like, you know, but like, you could tell it's me because my looks haven't changed. But, like, that kind of bothers me, like, not having any pictures and stuff, like, when I was a kid. Like, that kind of bugged me a lot, too.
Does anything come up for you now that you're raising a child? Are you being more mindful?
Yeah, it does. Like, even me having, like, my son, okay, like, I think about that a lot, too. It's like, I think about, like, how can somebody, I don't know, I think about my mom too, like, how can you have a child out there you know nothing about, you know? Like, I compare that to my child, like, I can't go a day without seeing my dude and, like, making him laugh or something, you know? And, like, I don't feel like that's ever gonna change, ever.
A lot of your unresolved or resolved,
Yeah.
stories with your childhood comes up because
Mhm.
now you're seeing the perspective
Yeah.
of the parent and you're reliving his childhood with your childhood or
Yeah.
comparing it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, my parents taught me how not to raise a kid. My son, he's so happy. He's a little butthead sometimes, but he's a boy, you know?
So before we wrap up, I still have one question. Have you ever hurt anyone, either intentionally or unintentionally, that you had to work through or resolve?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
What's your biggest regret?
I've been asked that a bunch, and I don't really regret anything in my life. And the only reason why I don't regret anything is because if I regret it, I'm gonna think about it more than often than I should when I just want to forget about it, probably. So I wish things didn't happen in the ways that they did, but I don't regret them. Like, I'm sorry that they happened like that. I'm sorry it took that way for me to figure it out, like going down that road. But if it wasn't for that happening, I wouldn't be here or nothing. But the one thing that I could have, like, and I don't want to say regret, but I wish I could have changed was probably just being more closer to my grandfather, really.
I guess my original question was any victims that you feel most regret
Oh,
about?
yeah, I feel bad for all of them, you know? Like, man, there was so many. Yeah, there was quite a few. And, like, I do feel bad, but I was just young and dumb, and I wasn't even thinking at all.
If there's anything you'd like to say, CP's listening to this conversation right now. If there's anything you'd like to tell her that I'm sure you've told her everything under the
Yeah,
sun already, but if you
yeah.
can make a moment out of this conversation right now and express what she's been or what she has done for you to help you have the life today that you dreamed of when you were in DYS, what would a few sentences that come to mind to you be?
That I really appreciate it and that I wouldn't mess it up for anything. I'm gonna keep going strong till the day I die.
CP, is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
It's crazy that it's been 10 years, right? Like, that's a very
I
huge
know,
number, right?
yeah, I met you.
You were 16.
Yeah, I was about to turn 17.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's been 10 years. I think that you know this, that, like, the best gratitude that you can show is living your best life and paying it forward, spreading your inner healing to everybody around you, and then ultimately, like, as widespread as you can and as people are interested in. I always tell you it's an honor. And when you FaceTime me with Lincoln's birthday party, right, when he turned 1, like, any way that I am still involved in your life and able to provide support to you, to Kayla, to Lincoln, it's just an honor. Like, it's really the fight that you had when I met you and the fight that you have today, it was always going to live within you. Comes along with an adult brain, which there's a lot to say to that. I also think it comes along with a lot of healing and effort on your part. It's an inspiration and it's beautiful. And listening to you and your comments and your responses and your observations from, like, a trauma lens, it's absolutely mind-boggling that you've created the life you always dreamed of.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still a lot, and like, you know, CP, there's still a lot more, but that's just like a lot of key things in my life, you know, that like I kind of think about, like I remember, you know, like the key memories, core memories, you know.
Yeah.
But now you've caught up. All adults have stuff,
Yeah,
and we're all working on ourselves.
yeah, every day.
I'd like to thank you both so much for doing this conversation. It's such an honor to be facilitating this 10-year anniversary reunion
Yeah.
and deep dive into a short version of your life story. Your story was brought up and described in our first episode together, and then CP kept referring to you as her kid and
Yeah, yeah.
that she loves you. And I, first of all, you know, you're adults now and she keeps calling you kids. And
Yeah.
I was trying to understand what she's talking about. I have had students before
Yeah.
and they're kids, but they're not my kids. And it hit me after having this conversation that there's so much more, the care and the love and that you've built together.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to see, and it's inspiring to
Awesome.
celebrate life transformation. You were that little vulnerable boy, and CP found you, and it was that first bubble of positivity you've experienced in your life, it seems like. And it feels like we're witnessing a miracle story, and
Yeah.
it's so beautiful.
When I first met her, it was bad though. It wasn't like that at first. It took a couple months.
Yeah, people listening and people who are in treatment and people who've gone through trauma, like, I think that's a good thing to remember, that in the beginning sometimes it's more painful and more fears will come up. And when you plunge through it and you have the courage to stay in treatment like Randy did, then you can really actively create miracles in your healing process and then in your life.
Thank you so much, CP. Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome. That was awesome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening until the end. If you are not subscribed to the show, or if you are not following the show on your podcast app, make sure to do so you don't miss a notification. Check out the backlog of this podcast, as well as the other podcasts on the Jewish Coffee House Network. If you need help with your podcast, or if you know anyone who needs help with their podcast, please do refer them to me. This is how you help support the show. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend or family member. Keep talking about it. Participate in the WhatsApp group conversation. And stay tuned for the follow-up episodes with Emilio in the next few weeks. In the meantime, if you are celebrating Thanksgiving, have a beautiful weekend. If not, have a beautiful week as well. See you next week.